After enduring a prolonged war at the Labyrinth, the conflict finally comes to an end and a portion of the team emerges victorious. Those who have succeeded remain above ground while several defeated masters release their prisoners of war, including newborn babies whose mothers had died in captivity. These infants are raised on monster milk and are so incredibly strong that they can hardly be considered human, requiring otherworldly power. One day, as the prisoners are exiting the labyrinth, they notice a young child emerging much later than the others. They speculate whether he was born in the labyrinth, and they attempt to offer him encouragement as they see that he struggles to control his nascent powers. He becomes known as the Dungeon Baby and grows up to become an impressive man several years later. He acts as the guide for a group of explorers who plan to video the dungeon and hope to find treasures within it. With one member citing research that suggests dungeon babies are fond of the labyrinth. Contrary to their expectations, he is the only dungeon baby who dislikes the dungeon, and his skill level remains unknown. The group hires guards in case of monster encounters, but he warns them not to shoot first, even if they encounter a monster. Despite his warning, the guards disregard his advice and shoot an injured but famous monster, much to his dismay. He urges the group to move on, as he fears the blood will attract more monsters. The team jubilantly boasts about how the monsters in the dungeon are just like humans on Earth and pose no threat. They talk about killing anything they come across and consider how much money they can make from selling the parts of the monster they just killed. However, they hear loud footsteps and the dungeon baby warns them that the predators have heard their gunshots and are on their way. He advises them to run, but the guards refuse, believing that they can take down the predators as they did with the previous monster. The dungeon baby is frustrated that they value money more than their own lives, but the guards are determined to earn more money. He decides to leave them behind and leads his colleagues toward the exit, but one team member is upset that she didn't finish filming. When they get some distance, the team is angry that he tricked them and accuses him of being a coward for never entering the dungeon before. They argue that they've spent too much money getting to the dungeon to let the dungeon baby waste their investment. They insist on making a video of the guards fighting the monster before returning. As they bicker, they hear loud noise and shaking behind them. He urges them to remain quiet and not reveal that their team is divided, advising that they let the predators encounter only the guards. Confused, they ask for clarification, and he explains that the monster they killed wasn't a predator but prey. When the guards killed it, the predators heard the commotion and discovered intruders. The woman blames the dungeon baby for allowing the guards to die, demanding to know why he didn't alert them earlier. He explains that he couldn't persuade them to leave and that running together would have doomed them all since the guards already had blood on them, attracting the predators. Unbeknownst to them, the second person among them has monster blood on their shoe, attracting the attention of a predator that attacks and kills him. The dungeon baby identifies it as the wolf monkey, surprised to see it on the first floor and horrified to realize there are many. He wonders if they've locked onto their location and if they knew they were in the dungeon. However, he's focused on survival and takes up his sword to fight the creatures, exploiting their weaknesses. The young girl who previously thought he was a coward is stunned to see him fight so skillfully, but he realizes he can't defeat them all and takes off, carrying the girl with him. Although he warns her that he'll run at the speed expected of a dungeon baby, which may result in her breaking a few ribs. The wolf monsters give chase, but he manages to get the girl out of the dungeon and tells her she's safe, but they must flee quickly since the monsters may still be on their trail. Instead of running for her life, she confronts him, asking why he allowed the others to die. She wonders why he didn't help them since he's strong enough to defeat the monsters with a dull knife. He reminds her that he was hired as a tour guide and not as their protector, asking if there was a clause in their contract obliging him to protect them. When she tearfully says that those people died, he tells her that's guys are for you, that she hired arrogant guards, and he warned them to avoid doing what they did. He states that he is not responsible for anyone's death and believes that if they had followed his instructions, they could have avoided the monsters and subsequent danger in the dungeon. Although he cannot fully answer her questions, he explains that it is not his responsibility to save everyone, which is why he let others die. However, he saved her because he needed her to pay him for his services. While they are trying to flee, they accidentally end up in the labyrinth emblem and must escape before they get hurt. Unfortunately, they fall through the ground. When he realizes his arm is broken, but he is more concerned about the lady who requested his help. He assumes she died in the fall, which means he lost his fee. As they try to find a way out, they encounter a snake emblem, and the snake attacks him, causing him to die. However, he suddenly wakes up, and his injuries are gone. He finds Junjuice lying nearby, badly injured but alive. He decides to take her to safety and returns home. Upon arriving home, he hears on the news that there was a fatal accident at the dungeon, and only Miss Jang survived with the help of Mr. Kim, the dungeon baby. He wonders how the news could have spread so quickly since they only left the dungeon a few hours ago. He expresses his relief that a video surfaced showing him attempting to advise the guards, who ignored his warning. Without this proof, he would have been liable for the accident and incurred a fine. He counts the money he earned that day and remembers leaving a portion in his sister Hyunji's room. As he approaches her room, he notices that her face appears unhappy, and he asks if she's been crying. He assumes she has seen the money he left in her room, which is a significant sum for her. She confirms she saw it and bursts into tears of joy. He hands her the second envelope of money, instructing her to use it for her wedding and reassures her that he didn't obtain it through illicit means. Soon after, their father returns home, upset and angry. He demands to know the meaning of their conversation and berates Kim for risking his life to work for money. He accuses Hyunji of being selfish and commands her to return the money. Kim attempts to lie to his father by claiming he earned the money working at the convenience store, but his father sees through the deception. He eventually apologizes for lying and accepts the money back from Hyunji, who promptly leaves the room. Their father scolds them both, claiming they have behaved poorly and accusing Kim of underestimating him. Kim reflects on his adoption as a dungeon baby, a child taken in for the monetary benefits without genuine intentions of care. He feels fortunate to have been adopted by a family who treated him as a member, but wonders if he truly has a family. He is currently concerned about his family's issues due to Hyunji's wedding and wants to assist them. Upon entering his room, he notices the tattoo on his hand, which he doesn't know the origin of, and a tablet that displays all of his abilities and facilities. He realizes that he cannot activate the Labyrinth facilities, but he wants to learn more about the green tablets, which he discovers online. He learns that the green panel resembles the tablets in video games, and the inscription of Naga's Labyrinth, which he found on the panel, is likely part of the labyrinth where he was bitten by the snake. He wonders if the abandoned labyrinth chose him as its master and feels that the portal also exists in games. He discovers a new feature on the portal and clicks on it, causing the portal to break, and he falls into the labyrinth, where he was previously bitten by the snake. Although he initially believes that he is in the same location, he soon realizes that it is slightly different. He encounters the snake again, and they engage in combat. He manages to strike the snake, causing it to fall, but he knows that he has only used a temporary measure to stop it. The snake reveals that it is the 18,230th snake releaser and sits on Naga's throne, implying that it is the labyrinth master. The snake calls him Naga's new king and bows to him before disappearing. Kim is left confused and frustrated, as he hates the labyrinth and has avoided it since his initial escape. He only visited once for Hyunji's wedding fee and is upset with himself for enduring one frustrating experience after another. He regrets not listening to his parents' advice to avoid the labyrinth altogether, as it led him to encounter a snake. Suddenly, Hyunji calls out for him to come see her, but he tells her he is still changing and prevents her from entering his room. He is surprised to hear sounds from his room echoing through the labyrinth, and yells for her to stop as he searches for a way out. He jumps back through the same portal but is shocked to find that his body is unharmed. Hyunji eventually enters and notices that he is sweating profusely and hasn't even changed his clothes. She assumes he is playing a game and tries to enter his room, but he stops her, telling her it's just a stream. He reflects on his childhood and how he used to lock himself in his room with no hobbies. He wonders if he is really uptight and why other dungeon babies are still drawn to the labyrinth. Hyunji apologizes for unknowingly causing him to return to the labyrinth, and he asks her to collect the money. However, he realizes he left the money in his coat, which is in the labyrinth. When he tries to retrieve it, he sees a monster holding his coat and becomes angry. He lies to Hyunji about playing a game to continue his new hobby and locks the door with lightning speed, leaving her impressed. It was the first time she had seen him excited, and it meant a lot to her because he wasn't one to play games. His issues were too large to expose to her, so he locked the door and entered the dungeon through the portal in his room. Once inside, he saw his coat lying on the floor and ran to grab it, assuming the monster he had seen playing with his clothes earlier was gone. He checked the pocket of his coat for Hyunji's money, but only found his wallet and phone. Everything else was still there except for Hyunji's money. The portal with the green snake tried to talk to him, explaining that an imp had stolen his money while he was away and that he needed to finish synchronization and activate the labyrinth to find the imp. He was furious and unleashed his anger on the portal, but he knew getting angry wouldn't solve his problem. He needed to find his money, and if activating the labyrinth was what he needed to do, he would do it. He sat at the table and started the activation process. He was worried about being drawn into the dungeon, but he needed his money. As he started the synchronization process, he realized he didn't know how the portal would open after he clicked yes. He considered finding the imp physically instead of waiting for the system to help him. However, just as he was about to stand up from the chair, the system confirmed his qualification and registered him as the master of the 18,230 Snake's Nest. He kept hearing the portal's voice echoing in his head. After being registered, the system began reorganizing the labyrinth based on the user's data. The room was altered with better lighting and a door was added. Although the user found the room still creepy, he declared the synchronization complete after the system finished the rearrangement. Meanwhile, Kim observed that the room had changed and tried to find the new improvements on his portal. He noticed a gate on the stats window and assumed it led to the labyrinth. He saw the imp who had stolen his money peeping through the gate, and when he squeezed the imp's neck, he found a down gem in his hand. Down gems are rare and valuable, and adventurers often risk their lives to obtain them. The imp had multiple down gems inside him, so Kim squeezed him again, causing him to drop another gem. However, when the portal notified Kim that he had sacrificed one of the gems to restore and upgrade the labyrinth's damage durability without his consent, he became furious. He had 24 hours to wait for the upgrade to complete and 72 hours left to raise the labyrinth's rank. Despite his frustration, he managed to sell the down gem at a reasonable price, and the wedding of Hyunji went well. He successfully negotiated with a merchant to sell the gem at a reasonable price, recalling the merchant's insistence on paying no more than 18 million despite his own higher expectations. Though disappointed, he sees the amount as sufficient for the wedding gift. Upon returning to the labyrinth, he discovers that the facility has been upgraded to rank 2, but also learns of weak defenses, low gate durability, and a new facility called the Niga Nest adjacent to his room. Curious, he investigates and senses the presence of a dungeon beast behind him, prompting him to command the workers to scout and map the area while avoiding battle. He also directs them to dig out a storage area, impressed by their speed and efficiency. When one worker returns alone, he fears the worst but is relieved to hear that the others are safe and have already collected spoils. With the map in hand, he locates the chamber with the vulnerable gate and absent military force, and realizes there is no need to explore further as there are already many nearby points of interest. He visits the nest to meet his workers and finds that they have gathered many spoils, but they brought whatever they found without knowing exactly what he wanted. He is unsure whether to feel happy or sad because the spoils look like ancient items from the Jisr Great War, most of which are destroyed or rusted. This suggests that no one has been in that particular labyrinth for a long time. As he ponders his options, one of his workers informs him that they have found gems. He collects the gems and realizes they are down gems, which he knows are valuable. They saw more of these gems during their adventure, so he instructed them to bring them to him. He rushes towards the portal to return to his room but stops at the gate. He worries about what will happen to the workers if he leaves them, as they will be vulnerable if the labyrinth gets attacked. He confirms with their representative that there are indeed more down gems in that part of the dungeon. He sacrifices lower-ranked gems and labyrinth energy to obtain the down gem, realizing that the labyrinth has only offered him possibilities, and he wonders if he made the right decision. He thinks about himself, and how he had tried hard to stop thinking about the labyrinth, and even locked himself inside because of it. But just one visit to the labyrinth has made him obsessed. He understands why most dungeon babies are obsessed with the labyrinth and why they are willing to throw their lives at it. He concludes that the way he felt was not because he was trying to adjust to the world, but rather because he was bored. Returning to the labyrinth made him feel better. He summons Naga soldiers and a maid to help him protect and maintain the labyrinth. He spends one down gem to summon a soldier and a maid, as he realizes he shouldn't spend carelessly on units that he will have to maintain unless he has enough down gems. He commands the soldier to defend the storage with the other workers, and he watches as the soldier leaves. He thinks the soldier looks physically capable of defeating monsters until level 5, which is a relief for him. Suddenly, his heroic maid appears to him. Dominique, the maid, is considered heroic due to her exceptional qualities that make her stand out from the other maids. He explains the situation of the labyrinth to her, including what they need at the moment. She immediately understands what he tells her and requests permission to explore the labyrinth map to find a solution. After checking the map, she discovers a lode and a plant with a down gem around them, and she suggests that they confirm the plant's existence before making plans on it. She explains to her master that there is a weak cave wall nearby that they can break to access the lode easily. She also suggests that they harvest some of the down gems from the nearby plants, which have strong survivability, so they don't need to maintain them for use. By breaking the wall and attaching an extension of their labyrinth to that side of the wall, they have increased the territory of their labyrinth. Dominique further suggests that it is easier for them to defeat the nearby passages to expand their labyrinth, and there is drinking water beside them. While looking at the map, they notice a red sign that looks like a dangerous mark, and her master asks her opinion. Dominique assumes that the marked places are territories of wild beasts, and they can set up a hunting area and use the money to help with their labyrinth maintenance, depending on the type of beast present. Her master finds it hard to pronounce her name, so he asks if he can call her Dominic, which she accepts, claiming that the name is incredible. He explains that he is from the world above and finds it difficult to stay in the labyrinth for long, but Dominique assures him that they don't have a labyrinth core yet, so he doesn't need to worry about creatures swimming towards them. She advises him to be prepared for anything in that world and understands his situation, making it easy for him to communicate with her. She advises him to upgrade the labyrinth and increase its defenses as soon as possible, which would require a large amount of down gems. When he asks if she can help with the down gems, she explains that only the master can summon the necessary workers and resources to upgrade the labyrinth, so she cannot do it for him. After some discussion, she asks what will happen if she fails to meet his standards. He reassures her that he values her contributions and hopes to work well together, but then suggests they continue the conversation later. She encourages him to upgrade the labyrinth with the gems she gathered earlier, and he asks if it will be enough. She confirms it will be sufficient, and he offers them to the altar for the upgrade to begin. Later, he visits a down gem jewelry merchant to sell some of the gems he obtained. The merchant is surprised to see him with so many gems and wonders where he got them from. He comments that Jisoo, a veteran explorer, has not been doing well recently, yet Kim seems to keep getting gems. He asks Kim to contract exclusively with his company and promises not to take advantage of him. The merchant's offer of a profitable partnership seems appealing to Kim, but he insists that he needs information about the labyrinth in exchange. The merchant agrees, stating that it's not a difficult task, and also offers Kim a job opportunity involving hunting hell spiders for their down gems. Kim declines the offer and turns to leave, but the merchant persists, suggesting that Kim's financial situation could benefit from the job. This angers Kim, who breaks the table and demands to know if the merchant did any background research on him. That's it for part 1. If you like the video, subscribe, leave a like and comment below. Thanks for joining us, and happy reading!